Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the Executive Committee to order. Thank you, Gene. I think we got it. Thanks. I don't want you to hurt yourself. Roll call, please.
Mr. Samuelson.
Here.
Mr. Steingart. Mrs. Labuda.
Here.
Ms. Vedder. Mr. Ruiz.
Here.
Mrs. Geiger.
Here.
Mrs. Edwards.
Here.
Mr. Benson.
Here.
Mr. Sorensen.
Thank you. Okay, we have County Manager's Monthly Report, nothing. Do we have a County Attorney Report?
No. He said I can't sit, so no report.
No report. Okay. All right, so we'll go right into discussion. We have, we'll start with our vacancy requests.
Oh, well, I may have spoken too quickly. I'm just looking around the room. Let me do a quick report because I thought she was going to be here for this community college.
Okay.
What the board should know is community college is preparing to do the solar array project. In order to do that, they've entered into a power purchase agreement with a firm called Helio Sage that's been approved by the state of New York for that new grant project for solar. In order to finalize that, they need a lease with the county to use the land that has been selected by Helio Sage, and they want to get that done quickly. Law department's working with the president of the college to do that. She has asked, since it may take a few weeks to get that lease done, she has asked that we prepare a letter of support for the project that Helio Sage can use in the interim. She sent me what you would like in that letter of support, and the chairman was probably going to sign that letter prior to us issuing the lease, so you should be aware that that's what's happening up at the college.
What's the deadline?
They want to get that done and break ground first or second week in April.
No, the letter.
I don't have a deadline on that.
Okay.
I'm going to try to get it out for her in the next day or two. That project is a 20-year project. They've done all of the computation as to how it's going to pay for itself and reduce college's costs over the years, and it's going to have an educational component. Okay, sir?
Any other questions of Sam on this issue? Nope. No? Okay, thanks, Sam. Okay, go to the vacancy requests. First vacancy is from DFS. County Sheriff 7,900. Vacancy was opened up in January. Any questions of Randy on this?
It was in January 13th.
Vedder.
January 13th, okay.
Sorensen in.
So any questions on this? Okay, all in favor?
Cora said, call the question.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Corey, you had a question?
No, I
Shoes.
didn't understand why it had been vacant for over a year and a half, but it doesn't matter now. It's gonna be filled.
Okay, Division of Public Works.
It is behind.
It's a laborer 2. This is Ed, I believe, part of the 128
This
mandate.
is in the 128.
Okay, so any questions on this position? All in favor? Any opposed?
9-zip.
Okay, thank you. Next, Sheriff's Office, the Jail Medical Unit. Vacated in February, a registered nurse. Any questions? Hal is here.
It's mandated, right, Hal?
Your vacancy?
It's not really mandated position. It's, I mean, obviously a position we have to have, but it's to cover vacations and illnesses and that kind of thing. So it's like just as needed basis.
Any other questions?
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Stay in the union?
Excuse me?
Is that a nice union position?
Well, it's a union position, but it doesn't come with any benefits. So it's a straight salary and that's it.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed?
9-zip.
Okay, thank you. DFS, again, we have, will be vacated, it's coming up in March. County Sheriff, 17,000. Social Welfare Examiner with backfills. Any questions, Randy? All in favor? Opposed?
9-zip.
Adult Care Center, I didn't see Deborah. Is Deborah here?
They had the unannounced site visit today survey.
Say again, I'm sorry.
They had the unannounced site visit from Department of Health, so she's at the facility.
Oh, okay, okay. So this is you currently have
With the fourth unit.
3
opening
aides up there. When the fourth opens, they need a person in that unit. So there's a county share, $1,500. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Department of Community Services, staff social worker, vacated in February, county share 0. All in favor?
I wanted to ask a
Okay.
question.
Oh, sure. Because I didn't ask. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
How does it end up being nobody's paying anything? I mean, it says 0, 0, 0.
What
Nothing on the
everybody
federal,
is-
nothing on the.
Is typically what occurs is with the person being as productive as they usually are, there's enough revenue based upon what they do to cover the cost of the position. And you know, if we have a seasoned social worker in the position, they typically will cover their annual cost by May.
Billings, right?
Yeah, with the billings,
They
the
bill
third party,
services.
the Medicaid,
Says it right
Medicare,
there.
all that, yeah.
So the
Thanks.
seasoned one will be billing more services,
Yes.
right?
There's a startup piece to this, but.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Funny that.
All in favor? Any
9-0.
opposed? Thank you. Department of Community Services, county share 0, vacated on March 7th. So staff social worker 1. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed?
9-0.
Great. Public Health Services, county share 0, budgeted, left March 5th of this year. Any questions of Nancy? All in favor? Opposed?
9-0.
Public Health Services, county share 0, budgeted yes, left last September, registered professional nurse position. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed?
9-0.
Division of Public Works, bus driver, RPT, vacated on February 11th. It's budgeted. Any questions of Ed?
Are these, any of these drivers' positions being looked at as part of that, transportation subcommittee, that
The
75,000?
transportation coordinated plan?
Is there a way, or are these, not part of that?
The entire transportation department is part of that plan.
Oh, okay, so then they're.
Not an individual person within it.
So, because I had heard that they were really tight on drivers this whole time, so.
We
are.
What's your total number of drivers?
We have 3 full-time, and at the moment, I believe we have 8 part-time. This would make it up to 9.
This one's a regular part-time.
This is a part-time, regular part-time driver, one that just left.
These
Who's
are the-
actually been out for quite a while before he left, so even though we had this position, we didn't have a person in this position.
So if you were at capacity, what would that look like?
This will bring us to our number of drivers that we have between full-time and part-time. We still want the 4 per diem drivers to make up for, we can have 2 people off at a time now, if we have this filled up, that's it.
So you're at capacity now? I'm still not clear.
This will fill out the number of positions that we have budgeted in full-time and part-time.
So the answer is yes.
Yes, but we are also going for 4 per diem drivers, which is, we had discussed at our last one.
Cora, there was an issue last year, we didn't have enough drivers to drive the veterans
Right.
to
I
the,
remember.
yeah, so if
We
that has
still have
extra,
our
we'll still
dispatcher
have,
driving
yeah.
on almost a daily basis.
Right.
Okay, so you really, so the answer is yes, but not really.
Correct.
Okay.
To the budgeted amount we are at now.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
9-0.
Okay. Great. We have a discussion item here, DA, DFS investigators and assistant district attorneys. There was a resolution that was presented that had a piece in it, an added piece to it, so I asked the district attorney to pull that off and have a discussion so that we all understand fully exactly where this division is going and how it's going to be done before we vote on that. So at this point, I'll leave it open to you, Jim, if you want
to. When we came to the Family Services meeting, we discussed moving the fraud unit to the DA's office and moving the Director of Fraud into the umbrella of the DA as a DA's investigator and adding 2 additional fraud investigators to help with the fraud initiative that's been set up by the legislature now going on, I think, almost 12 months. In my conversations with Randy after that meeting and in our conversations leading up to that meeting, we had also discussed the issue of the prosecution of those cases. Right now, we hand out the prosecution of the fraud cases to the assistant district attorneys who handle those particular cases in the justice courts where they arise. So if someone's charged in liberty, and for the most part, I think most of the offenses are being charged in liberty, so the ADA in Liberty, who has a high docket to begin with because it's one of our busiest courts, I think it's either the busiest or the second busiest court by number of cases each year in the county, dedicating an ADA in conformity to what the comptroller said in their report. What they said was that we did not bill social services for the prosecutions that we take that involve social services issues. This position would be, I'm advised by the commissioner, and Randy, you can speak to that, would be funded to the tune of 84% by state and federal money. So the county share on a $100,000 salary, benefits included, because you're talking about someone who would not be a retiree, would be $20,000. If it's a family, it'd be $20,000. If it's a non-family, and the person takes a single, then it's $18,000. The difference is $2,000. We thought that that was a cost-effective way to deal with these fraud cases, to make sure that they are being timely prosecuted, moved through the court systems, and are not sitting around. I can tell you, from my own experience, because I'm handling the internal cases myself. So the internal fraud cases that have come, and there are 3 of them currently pending, with a 4th, which is kind of an appendage. He's not an employee, but he's related to that. They've taken up quite a bit of my time and my energy in what I do as DA, and I've been handling them personally. I think if we had a dedicated fraud assistant district attorney who just handled the fraud cases, would handle no other cases, we would be furthering the intent of this unit to make sure that we are not only arresting people who commit fraud, because that's only part of the equation. Arresting them is half the job. We have to do the other half of the job. We have to convict them, we have to bring them to court, we have to seek the restitution of the monies if we can get them, and remuneration if we can, as a result of that prosecution. If we drop the ball on the other end, then I think that the package that we're trying to put together doesn't really work as well as we want it to work. And because the county share is so small, the thought was, why don't we pitch this as well? To make sure that we understand that this person would not be handling robberies, would not be handling burglaries, would not be handling DWIs, would be handling fraud exclusively. And would be the fraud prosecutor, basically, and work very closely. Now, we've also looked at the way they've set it up at the state level in the Medicaid Inspector General's office. It's set up the same way. You have a set of attorneys who work with and in tandem with an investigative team who arrest, prosecute, and even at some points need the advice or assistance. And I can tell you that Jerry works at DFS as the fraud investigator, but I think I probably see more of him than Randy does right now, because he's in my office quite a bit, conferring about active cases, conferring about investigations, conferring about what should be done next, if you need subpoenas, whatever it is, and we're there to help. This would dedicate a person to do that. We put it out there. I've got 2 resolutions prepared. I did pull it back since it wasn't discussed at the Family Services meeting. If you want to have further discussion on that, that's fine. If anybody has any questions, be willing to take it. Randy is also willing to take questions on the amount of money that we would see in terms of reimbursement from state and Fed money. I think that it's a win-win, but again, it's up for debate and discussion. I think that if we do the first part, we have to be prepared to do the second part.
So I
that's the
have a
point of
couple
that.
of questions.
Like an episode of Law and Order.
The resolution that was sent around included the ADA. I've sent a
Where is
second
that?
resolution, which Annie has,
Oh,
and I have,
okay.
which took it out. And the
Which one?
numbers, if you look at the numbers, it's about 100,000. That's the difference. And in county share, it's about 20. So that's the difference.
Well, if we
So-
don't-
Yeah, and it's 100. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
Kitty,
Yes, Marty.
Oh, does Kitty have a hand up first?
All right, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Jim, I just wanted to know, this person you said is a dedicated fraud DA.
ADA.
So that person would not be doing anything but the fraud. So
Correct.
instead of having the one in Liberty, that person would do all the rest of the stuff they do in Liberty. This person would cover the whole county as far as
That's
DA
correct.
business.
And for
Okay.
fraud, correct.
Okay,
And
now,
most of the cases are in Liberty, but we do have some that are in other cases, other courts, specifically the deadbeat dad situation is in Monticello. So there would be, there would be some going to different courts, but it would basically be in the areas where the
Are
fraud
they at
charges
Liberty
are.
because that's where the community services
That's
and
generally where we
social
charge.
services are?
Yes, that's correct.
So they may not actually physically have their residence there, but
That is
that's
correct.
considered because the
Correct.
building is there.
Correct.
That's why Liberty Court
Yes.
gets to see
Yes.
them.
okay, and the other piece of the question is, help me understand, within the DA's office, remembering back, I thought there was hired people within the last, it could be 6 months, but I think it was only within the last 3 months.
True. It's within actually the last, we hired someone March 1st. Bonnie Missner retired, and we replaced her.
That was a replacement
That
of
is
a
correct.
retired position, correct?
That's correct.
So,
Yep.
just so that I'm clear.
The office, just so you understand, the office has shrunk since I took office by one ADA, one secretary, 145,000 per year for 4 years. We did not fill one position with agreement with the chairman at the time. So the total savings to the county in terms of the DA's budget has been forward-leaning, 145 per year, and then when I consolidated the grand jury stenographer, that even got us a little bit above. So it was about a 10% cut of the entire DA budget, which we have not supplanted. This would supplant some of that because it would get us back to where we were prior to 2010. However, the money would not be coming from my budget, it would be coming from DFS budget and the county and state reimbursement, because this person would be dedicated to doing all 100% of their work fraud.
So you'd gain a body, but wouldn't gain
I did
the-
not get that back either.
You'd gain a body, but you wouldn't gain the cost of the body.
Well, we've gained a partial of the cost,
Right.
about 20%.
His expense would increase, but there would be 84% revenue
To offset.
I mean, 100% from us. But we would pick up the local share. The local share would not be picked up from the general fund.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have a couple questions. Could we start with, okay, so Jerry Dietz is gonna be moved over to your office, correct?
That would be the
So
plan.
Linda send us a memo, so that is, okay, where's Linda, I'm sorry, is that, I read your memo?
Well, what I wanted to make clear is,
Mhm.
because there was a lot of discussion regarding the jurisdictional classification of the position at DFS.
Okay.
What I wanted to make clear was that just because you move it into the DA's office does not necessarily mean that it then becomes a non-competitive or exempt class position under the jurisdiction of civil service.
Okay.
That is a determination for the state to make based upon the job duties, based upon the organizational chart and who that individual reports to, and based upon the justification that we send to the state. I did have a conversation with Mr. Farrell last night, and we discussed, working together to do what we can with respect to 2 of the investigator positions. The other 2 positions, I believe, would not be in the non-competitive or exempt class, that they would then be competitive and tested positions.
I think that
Okay.
we can have a further discussion on that. I listened to what Linda said last evening. I also then did a little research of my own with respect to surrounding offices. I found that in Orange County, all 100% of his investigators, of DA Hoover's investigators, are non-competitive. He has, I believe, 10 or 13 in that range. And I think he has one exempt. And Linda and I discussed last night that the state doesn't generally like to give you more than one exempt, but the other path is non-competitive. And we can try to write it and try to craft the creation of this fraud team in such a way that we have the best chance of trying to get a non-competitive arrangement. I think we can do that. We may not be successful, but we can, and we have the ability to try to do that. And we talked about setting up the memorandum of understanding between the DFS and the DA in such a way as to make sure that we have the best ability to get that non-competitive classification. Because I don't think we're going to get exempt. I think that's clear that they generally only give you 1 or 2 at max on the exempt end, but they will consider them non-competitive. Now, non-competitive means they work at the pleasure of the DA, and the DA then would pick them. I really do believe that these positions can be crafted in such a way. The reason I say that is because of the unique nature of the qualifications that it's going to take to perform these duties. The confidential nature of these positions with respect to their relationship with me and the relationship with our initiative to combat fraud. So I think we can try to do that. We may not be successful, but we have the ability to try, and that's what Linda said. I think we have a much better chance at the other two because the director and the family violence response, I think because of the way they're set up currently. But I think that we have a way to try to even make the other ones non-competitive. I think that we have to try to do that because these are, again, positions that you're looking at. You're not, and the example is it's not practical to test for these skills. And what I go back to is what I said to you the last time. Most police departments don't test for detectives. They don't. Most of the people that are going to be applying for these jobs, not all, but most, are going to be people that I know, people I've worked with, people that my staff has worked with, people that the police chiefs locally have worked with, and know their abilities, and know whether they have the ability to do the work that's going to be demanded of them. So I think we can try to do that. I think that we have the opportunity to do that. We are still a home rule state, and I also looked at Onondaga County. Onondaga has 16, and it's a bigger county, bigger than Orange, and they're all confidential DA investigators, and some of them are associated with task force. This is like a task force. This is a task force to combat fraud. So I think we can craft it in such a way, if we are cognizant of what Linda advised me last night, and what she indicated to me would be what we would have to submit to the state in terms of the organizational chart and the duties, that we could get this done. If we can't, and I said this last night, if we can't, well then we have to test for it. It's as simple as that.
Okay, so the sheriff is there. Sheriff, would you mind coming in a minute? Because okay. So the detectives in your department, do they test or not? Do they have to take tests?
We have both. Tommy O'Connor came over as our gang intelligence, drug intelligence task force officer. He had to take a test. It's competitive. Okay. We tried to get around it. We could not get an approval. He took the test. We went through the process, and we were able to get him in because of the qualifications we put for that position. It was kind of a specialized thing, and he brought those skills to the table.
Okay, now to put you on the spot, but you are here. We got a letter from the PBA, and they wanted to know why the detectives aren't going onto your department. So, can you please shed some light on that? Explain to me what. In the past, have they been under your department? Have you worked with, can you just explain that all to us before we?
Well, it's a split thing. The fraud investigative unit is brand new. Other than being under DSS, they had, I'm not even quite sure how it was structured, but this is something new that we traditionally have not been doing. The other task force there with the state police. Violence Task Force. That is something we did, and when the money dried up to fund that, and we got our manpower cut severely, we had to pull out of that. That is one that we had normally done out of our office. Now, I wasn't privy to any discussions how this was set up, what the thought process is. But I would say I did have a conversation with Jim. It's the cost. I would be sitting back and waiting to see what civil service says. If it can be done with a waiver, it's absolutely a money saver. And I wasn't asked to put together a package. Like I said, I wasn't privy to the discussion, so I can't talk about what the thoughts are with the fraud unit, how they're setting it up, what's being done. But I would say wait and see what civil service does at this point. But I would say it's half and half. The fraud unit is something brand new we normally have not had. What they would do is they would call us or the state police or Liberty or whoever, even before Jerry was out there. And if they had something, they would pass it on, and then we would assign a detective or a deputy to that to go handle it. So at this point, I'm not even sure how they're structuring it. I couldn't speak intelligently about it.
Well, if I just, if I recall, the conversations initially in setting up the fraud unit, the hiring of the fraud investigator, was that it would be a non-competitive position because of the qualifications, experience needed, all those things. So I don't know where that changed somewhere along the line.
If we look back to where we were a year ago in creating the team and what we have learned in this past year, there was a question initially if the position should have a police officer status and would have the ability to arrest. We went into it not having that ability. We looked at it for the past 12 months, a lot of discussion with Jerry about the pros and cons of that. I think a big factor in that is having that authority to arrest. I mean, it's not being done to circumvent a classification or something, but it's being done to the arrest piece and just I don't think we were necessarily thinking we would have 50 arrests in a 6-month period, and these cases are complicated, they're time consuming, and my concern is if we get to the point where we saturate the district attorney's office, then the entire initiative is going to take a step back as it pertains to the ADA. But we've learned quite a bit in 12 months, and
I'll wait till the end.
having that law enforcement powers is big moving forward.
Carl?
One of the things that I, as Chair of Public Safety and Law Enforcement, feel very strongly about is that when you look at the overall successes that have happened to date, that there's 102 arrests. I don't know what the conviction rate is. I do know that there were 2 out of those cases were people who hadn't been paying child support, and they're were significant, like $125,000 in arrears. So that's money that comes back into the county. Then you have the 800 cases that are open and pending. So what that tells me is that this is not an isolated case of one particular fraud, waste, or abuse here, or another case of fraud, waste, and abuse there. What the overall numbers tell me is that this is systemic, it's widespread, and it's been going on for a long time. So the consequences of not doing this are very, very great. And I think we're following the state model, aren't we, Jim?
We are.
Excuse me, Sam, sorry to interrupt.
We are. The state model is for there to be a team approach to this type of fraud. And as Sam was saying a minute ago in my ear, these types of cases are cases that lend themselves to lots of conversations with a lawyer, because they're not, as easy as somebody broke into a house and now we have this property missing and we know we have a burglary. They can be subtle, and there's a lot of subtleties, and that's why Jerry's very often in my office and in the DA's office getting assistance and getting guidance and getting input from assistant district attorneys. So I think that's important. I think it's critically important that we have a coordinated approach. Now, the other thing the Sheriff said, and I want to echo, this is new. What we did before and what didn't work was assigning the fraud cases to the various agencies that handle it. Why it didn't work? I'll tell you why it didn't work. I know why it didn't work. Because fraud, white collar stuff, goes to the back burner. It always does. Because when you have a robbery, or you have a homicide, or you have a rape or a child sex assault, those cases triage first. They get the attention. And the guy who embezzled the money, the guy who defrauded welfare, the guy who stole PA benefits, they go to the back. They just do, and that's what's happened. And that happens.
Saying this in the
Well, no, but it's just but it's the truth. I mean, I'm speaking the truth. It's what happened. Catch as catch can did not work. It didn't work. It's nobody's fault. It's not the state police's fault. It's not the Liberty. It's nobody's fault. It's not the DA's fault. Nobody's fault. But it just doesn't work that way. If you want to really attack this problem, if you really want to send a message that we're not open for that type of crime anymore, we have to attack it coordinated. We have to have a coordinated approach. And in order to do that, we need dedicated folks who that's what they do. That's what they do, and they follow it wherever it leads. Wherever it leads. So if we have that, we're bound to see results. Whereas opposed to catch as catch can, maybe, maybe not. Maybe for a little while, and then the robbery comes along, or the burglary comes along, or the wave of burglaries come along, and you get distracted. And these agencies, the state police barracks in Liberty, New York, is down BCI investigators that have not been replaced for years. For years. Okay? The sheriff is down investigators that were not replaced. So these investigative rooms are smaller. Liberty is down. They're all, Monticello doesn't have any. Monticello does not have any detectives come summer. None. This should be a real awakening here. We got serious crime in our community that we have to deal with, and then we have fraud, and now we expect our detectives who are always overworked to take that challenge on and do that as well. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. It's pushed to the back.
So to kind of move that along, from this moment, from right now, until we figure out if it's going to be a test, if it's going to be an appointment, if it's going to be what, will that set us back? Will that backlog us? Will it put things in jeopardy, some of these cases?
What do you mean, in terms of how we classify them? No, we're gonna attempt, and with Linda's help, we're gonna attempt to classify them as non-competitive.
Well,
We're gonna
that's
attempt
fine,
to do that. But we can provisionally appoint folks to get folks on the ground. Well, listen, if we have to test, we have to test, and then we have to go by civil service rules, top 3, you know how that.
That's fine. I just want to know if this is going to set us back and we're going to lose our momentum of what we really want to do.
I don't think so. I think that we have to keep the momentum going forward.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that the civil service part of it has any impact whatsoever on what we do. Because the bottom line is that we have to follow civil service rule. So whatever it is, we follow it. But we have the authority locally to make those decisions, and then have the state tell us whether they agree with us or not.
And how long does that usually take? Do we know, Linda? The
Well,
state is the state.
You know, it all depends, because I specifically asked the state, because we had done a rules resolution back in 2011 that finally got approval of some things, disapproval of others this January. And I asked if that generally takes this long, and they said absolutely not. Depending on the size of the resolutions, and we have an issue in the DA's office right now that we're going to have to address first before we even address these other ones. They said that their turnaround time is within about 200 days. So we should have an answer by the end of
200 days.
200 days is a maximum, they would say.
But that doesn't stop the unit from working in the meantime.
No, it doesn't stop the provisional appointments and the creation of the positions first, and then you'd appoint somebody provisionally into it. With respect to those who require a waiver because they're retired police officers collecting a pension, they would apply for their waivers at this point, and they'd most likely be approved pending the reclassification.
Now, the other thing is, I'll tell you that there was a recent, I think it was in November or December, the State Civil Service Commission approved a state creation of a welfare fraud unit an attorney, and 4 investigators. And guess what each one of those was with civil service? Exempt.
How long does a waiver last?
There were 4 investigators. How long does the waiver last? 2 years.
Not while it's pending classification, though.
Right,
That
right,
could be
then it's
shorter.
just temporary.
That's a
Correct.
temporary.
But
And
once,
how long
once
is
it's
that?
permanent, then it's 2 years.
My understanding with respect to Mr. Dietz's position,
I
when they.
wasn't mentioning names, but okay.
Well, we've mentioned the name already, so with respect to that position, that was given a 1-year pending reclassification, however, that was never done. So he's up the end of April. If we create the new positions in the district attorney's office, those waivers would be in effect from, when they create the position, probably give about a year.
Do we know why that was never done?
I don't think we do know the answer to
I
that.
can't speak to that.
Yeah.
I was not in this position at that time.
No, that's fine. I'm just curious if.
But
we
I
do-
believe that it was represented that was going to be done, and it wasn't.
And we're
So
dealing
that's
with
the
it now.
fact is,
But
that's what the
I
fact is.
can tell you that the state was, had indicated to me that it was not likely to change the classification from competitive to non-competitive.
Well, that's really not my concern. My concern is him continuing to do the job. That's my concern.
Okay, any other questions?
I do have
Okay,
one,
Laura?
and it was, I don't know, Randy, if it was you who said it or Jim, but the quote was, "We did not bill social services on cases involving DFS." What does that actually mean?
That was from, remember last fall, we had the report from the
State.
Comptroller's Office, New York
Okay.
State, and where they were reviewing the maximization of federal and state reimbursements,
Right.
and they had noted that several county departments who were doing work for DFS, that we did not have MOAs, memorandums of agreement or understandings
Right.
with those respective departments, and they strongly recommended that MOAs be established. We've recently done that with the county attorney's office, where there's an MOA, and then there's a chargeback to our agency for work they do on our behalf. So they had listed the district attorney's office as having not historically been billing DFS for DFS related work.
So there has been arrest.
So this really,
But the point is that from now here going forward, this work that's being done is being reimbursed through the salary structure, or it's gonna be an added, time and charges?
There'll be employees of the district attorney's office, and then there will be a billing system set up for the district attorney to bill DFS and us to reimburse for the expense.
Okay, got it.
Through the memorandum of agreement. Now, the other thing is the family violence response team piece. I just want to mention that because it's really, that's critical to me. It's critical because that unit was formed in the wake of the brutal murder of Christopher Gardner. He was 4 years old. We all know the case.
Yep.
The unit was formed in order to put together social workers and police officers, and that's plural, police officers, together so that they could investigate these very serious crimes against children in the family unit, sexual abuse and physical abuse. In 2010, the decision was made by the management of the Sheriff's Department to withdraw the detective from the unit. When that happened, I lobbied intensely for that to remain. That did not remain, okay? I asked the chief of police, when Doug Sullivan was the chief of police in Monticello, if he could give me a person. I asked Scott Kinney and Rob Meir, when he was chief of police in Liberty, if they could give me a person. I asked the state police. I begged the state police. I went to the captain. Please give me another body. We need 2 officers in this unit. I went to Simi Williams. I asked him, could he give me a dedicated detective to put in the unit? None of these police agencies could give us a person. So that unit, for 48 months, approximately, give or take, come April, I think April 25th of this year, for 48 months, has been understaffed and underserving our residents. Now, what happened is when Randy came on board, Randy and I had a conversation. Randy said, you know what, I may be able to do something to get us to the point where we can, and he had a conversation with the senior investigator, Jan Golding at Liberty, to put a person in that unit. That unit is in desperate need. He knows from his people. The unit is supervised by a senior caseworker, a senior supervisor from the Department of DFS, and the senior investigator at Liberty. He knows that that unit is understaffed, and has been understaffed, and is underserving. This is desperately needed, folks. The unit number of reports of child abuse are up 20% in 2013. They're not going down. They're going the other direction. I beg to have police officers put in this unit. We need another police officer in this unit. This is a way to put another police officer in that unit under the DA's umbrella. The person would report directly to me. I am a co-participant in the unit, and we have a memorandum of agreement in which we'll execute a new one once the new year rolls around. I think we're actually due for a new memorandum of agreement on your team. And we will make sure that we're protecting those kids who are being victimized by their families. Because these cases are serious, they're important, and folks, we don't need, and I'm not saying this for shock value, but we don't need the death of another 4-year-old to wake us up to that reality.
And
it's
that
as simple
happened,
as that.
But that happened 17 years ago, and somebody's doing their job, otherwise, I mean...
How it plays out on a day-to-day basis is that, I mean, I think we have the best BCI for child sex abuse and physical abuse cases that is out there, you know, Nancy Stack. But with the investigations that Nancy is doing, you get saturated with the number of investigations. So what happens on a new call, and what the reason why you have a team is that you want to, you know, stop any further trauma, any further abuse, and you don't want your own process to create additional trauma to the child. What happens right now is we have a process that if Nancy's out, you know, doing 3, 4 other investigations, collaterals, interviews, and a new case comes in, the worker does not go out until they have a discussion with Nancy. Nancy, because she can't be in, you know, 2 or 3 places at one time, will tell the worker, go out and initiate the investigation. What then unfortunately happens is we'll go and we'll initiate, our caseworker, senior caseworker will go and assess immediate safety and start having to interview the child. But then unfortunately what happens is you're gonna have to then re-interview the child with Nancy. So you're already, you know, having that child have to talk about the incident again and what happened. And so if you have that second law enforcement person right from the get-go, you're gonna have one interview. You know, you're gonna reduce the number of interviews. So, you know, you're right, the unfortunate, tragic fatality was years ago. But these are the cases that are sexual abuse, and the sexual abuse is usually at the hands of a person familiar to that child, typically a paramour of the mom, someone who's been in a trusting relationship with that child, and they're very, very complex and difficult. And that level, I personally don't know how you test for someone in that position, because you could get a detective who has been a detective but has never interviewed a child regarding, you know, sexual abuse, assault. I mean, there are techniques, etc., that they are trained in, but it's just, I mean, these are little kids, these are vulnerable kids. I mean, this is it. If we don't keep them safe, you know, it's tragic. And that trauma, I mean, there's the First Child Advocacy Center, you know, in Huntsville, Alabama, you know, back in the, you know, late 70s, early 80s, you know, recognized that the system who's set up to protect kids actually adds trauma to kids and putting them through unnecessary interviews. You got to think about it. A child goes to school, tells a guidance counselor their story, right? Then the guidance counselor calls a hotline. So then the child may, if it's something acute, go to the hospital and tells the hospital their story. Then someone calls us, and then Nancy's busy, Nancy says to the worker, well, you gotta go out and initiate contact, and then the worker says, hey, there's something there, Nancy, we gotta go back. I mean, the object is, I mean, hopefully at some point in the near future, we're talking to you about some form of child advocacy center for Sullivan County.
I agree.
Where everyone's in location and the medical component is coordinated right from the get-go, and, you know, it's a comprehensive evaluation. I think this is a step in that direction to create a, you know, a center or a well-coordinated investigation.
We would need funding for that, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't come, but I've spoken to DA of Broome County relative to his child advocacy center. It is very successful. It is exactly what Randy explained. It's a center, it's a place where children are taken when these investigations commence. The police officers are staffed there, the social workers are staffed there. The center is a warm and welcoming place as opposed to a room in a police department or a precinct. And it has been very, very successful in their ability to prosecute and put away the folks who are doing this stuff to these kids. But it's going to take money, and I don't know that we're there yet, but this unit is very, very important to the safety of these kids. And it has been underserved and understaffed for 48 months. And Randy raised the discussion with Investigator Golding about potentially being able to get state and federal money. I think it's an important initiative that we should strongly consider, and I would urge you to vote in favor of this particular initiative because it's extremely important to this population.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, supporting these efforts here is really, the reimbursement rate makes it a non-argument as far as I'm concerned, because you're sending the message, we're gonna continue the fraud, and the child protective pieces, you're protecting kids in those situations, so it's a non-argument.
Okay. You have two versions of a handout.
I know.
You have it right here?
I have the one today.
And the one I sent?
Yeah, I would have to make copies of that.
Okay, the one that you sent originally has the ADA.
That is correct.
Is that the one that we? One more question though. Can you just familiarize everybody with the county share on all of them
Do you want me to pass
together?
this out to the legislature?
It's 20%.
Well, if we're it depends on what we're doing. I don't want both of them out there. If we're
I only
gonna-
have one.
Okay, but that one
Without.
has.
Without
I just want to know the
ADA.
total, figure out the total.
We want the one with the ADA on it, or do we want the one without the ADA?
I'd like to see them both, because we don't know, like you say, what the rates are.
Okay, why don't you pass these out, and if you would make
Yeah.
copies of the other one for everybody.
Do you need a copy of it?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank
Also,
you.
I'd just like to take a moment to thank all the hard
There was
work.
only-
53 versus
I don't know how long it's taken to write that 4-page
Correct.
memo.
The
and all
legislators
time that
only,
we
I
spent.
was told.
It's 53
And
versus 76.
Jim, I just want to
That-
thank
yeah,
you both
just
for
don't
all the
read it.
hard work that you put into
I looked the other way.
getting us to this point.
You know,
It's a
and Jim,
$20,000 difference.
They only have-
excuse me? Jim, just one more quick question. The duration of contract, it is in there from the 1st of April to March 31st, and that is a 15. And
That's a 15, correct. We would do a 1 year, and it would be subject to, I believe some legislators wanted it to be subject to if the reimbursement disappears or dries up, that we would revisit that. So anybody who took these positions would know that, would be well aware of that. And that's in the resolution, that's in both, actually.
it's in the resolution?
It is. It's in both.
Okay.
It's the last
Yeah,
paragraph.
I got this one.
Never one way.
Good
So our
luck.
funds budgeted, Josh, could you explain that?
You'll be fine.
She's getting it.
Sorry.
The codes are already there.
Or some of them.
Yes and no.
Yes.
Yes and no.
Randy?
Oh, the 76, okay, I see it.
We included the salary of Mr. Dietz, but that has already been, that was already approved in the 2014 budget. These obviously, you know, beyond his expense would be a new expense. But the revenue we have within an intergovernmental fund in our DFS budget, based on the comptroller's report and recommendations,
Mary Marino advises me that there's up to $180,000 in there, so that is not being used and is not going to be used otherwise, all of it in 14. So we do have that local share to pick up within our current budget.
That 180 is actually allocated to salaries?
Well, it's in a fund, and part of it was for an MIS position that was going to be located in DFS. We haven't had that discussion. We don't have that position, and we're 4 months in the year. So, and then there are other funds available in there that we weren't sure what the volume would be in MOAs, but we have that money remaining to pick up that local share.
So this one right here, that I'm looking at with the 53 county share, that's the three.
That's without an
okay, that's
ADA.
the two.
Okay, the only thing, Jim, that I would say to you is, in the body of the resolution, there isn't that 1 year timeframe.
No, that's on the other.
It's in the CAF, but if we could amend this resolution to put that in there, I think that's a good idea, and for all the reasons you mentioned.
I've only got one. And also,
Pass this down
we
to
need to have it verified by the
It's for
budget officer.
Cora and Jonathan, and Ellen's bringing in the rest.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if it has
So what's the
signatures on it.
76 then?
There's none.
Used.
I never received
I'm
any.
confused. So what's the total?
Okay.
Can you figure this out for me, honey?
This is the one with the ADA in it.
So you should all have in front of you two resolutions, separate resolutions, one.
Ellen, Ira, and Cindy, Alan and Kitty.
Okay, so resolution number 1 is dated 3/18, and resolution number 2 is dated 3/19, correct?
Yep.
Right. So 318 has the ADA, the new ADA included in it. 19 does not have it.
One more down here.
Do you have the first, any of the first one left? Then that depends on family or.
I'm good. Give me these ones.
So can I just ask a question, because I got so many papers in my hand, I don't want to. The salary for the, Jim, the salary for the ADA would be how much?
About 20,000
I know,
county share.
what's the salary for the ADA?
65.
Okay. Okay, so the total, I just want to talk to my colleagues a minute. Okay, so the total 76 for all three, 20% county share. And I just want to remind my colleagues that,
It's actually 16%.
16%, okay. And I just want to remind my colleagues that it's only March and this is all covered for this year, but in the 2015 budget, we're gonna be over, if the status quo, we're gonna be over the tax cap, so I'm gonna call for a public hearing next month. I wanna lift the tax cap for next year if we can, so that we can continue to fund these programs for next year. Okay?
Okay, now, I'm sorry, Josh, what?
Linda advised it, and I think she's correct there. You probably at the same time you're doing this need to set salaries for all these positions.
What's that?
You would need to, the board has the authority to set salaries, so the resolutions would need to include the salary levels of all the positions. And
See,
And
when
I have one other
we were
question.
thinking to get the MOA, in the agreement, the concept, the dollar amount with it, and then we had expected that you would have to go to personnel.
oh well, if that's the
Can you get
case,
to us
then,
by
then you'd have to
4:30?
have another resolution
what?
creating the
To set-
positions, setting
to set the
salaries.
salaries.
By 4:30?
Can I just ask
Well, I think
one
they're talking about
question?
doing it in personnel.
Oh, okay.
Can I just ask one question regarding this? Is it your intention to then abolish the position of the Director of Fraud Investigations?
At DFS?
In DFS.
Yeah.
In DFS, yes.
I'm asking that because there's a scheduled test date, and I want to know whether or not I have to post the exam notice or not. Because that has to be done
You're
today if
authorizing NOA.
you're going to continue. If you're going to abolish, then I don't have to worry
If this
about it.
gets approved, we will, abolish that.
Okay.
So where would we do how would we
You
do
would have
that?
a resolution of personnel abolishing the position in DFS and creating.
And then setting the salaries for
and
the-
setting
This
the
is just the
salaries.
MOA.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so is everybody clear at this point that we will be taking a vote on the resolution dated the 18th that includes an ADA? Okay, it's for $76,000 or $77,000 county share. The only thing that I would like to recommend have an amendment to put in
Well,
the,
we need a motion and a second first.
okay, so, all right, so let's go with this, with the one on the 18th, a motion.
Well, we have to make a motion.
Jean, on the 18th.
Right? Yes, I'll move it.
Motion, Jean, Allen.
Motion, Alan. Okay, second, Alan. Okay, so now the only thing that I would like to know if we can put that amendment in here for the 1-year date, the
Yeah, I'll make a.
April 1st to March
I'll make a
31st.
I'm
motion.
sorry, I was out of the room.
Amendment.
I have no idea what you're
Kitty has a
talking about.
question.
In the CAF, there is a duration of contract date from April 1st, 14 to March 31st, 15.
Right.
I would like to see that put into the body of, an amend the resolution to include that,
Duration of
the
contract.
duration of contract.
I'll move that.
Okay,
Moved by
Jean,
Jean.
second, Cora, okay. Is there any further discussion?
Kitty had a question.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And I think that's important that we do that before
Be
we
it
get out
further,
of the
I'm
job,
putting it in.
because, listen, we've already, the fraud team has evolved already to this point. It's gonna evolve again the next year. So let's revisit it after the year, and we'll see where we're at, and see what the legislature wants it to go, or
see
not,
where-
at
where
that
our
point.
funding
Correct,
is, all of
correct.
that.
I think that's
That's why I
important.
think it's a good idea.
Yes.
Kitty?
I'm sorry.
Your turn.
When I look at, my recollection is really the whereases are important, you don't need to change them, you can change them, but the now therefore be it resolved is the major piece. I don't see anything different between the two now be it resolved. Can you explain to me where the difference is? Because when
I
I'm
think they
reading
both have to
line
work.
for line, they
You have a
seem
motion,
to be
second,
the
an amendment. You
same.
need to call a question on the
Maybe a
amendment.
mistake.
Did I not take it out of the resolve?
I'm asking the question.
Hold on.
If I look word
No,
for,
it's
even
there.
though they're different paragraphs, different size paragraphs,
It's there.
when I read word for word
No,
what
the
it
ADA, the
says,
ADA is taken out of the
which
one.
line?
On the 19th.
Which line?
On the one that is dated the
I
19th.
have 10 minutes before the full board, so it doesn't matter to me.
It says assistant district attorney position.
This one,
Said position primarily responsible for the management and prosecution of fraud cases. Referred by the fraud investigation, that's out of the second.
so when I go down, how many lines in the resolved? But when I read it, it reads the same. You see it there? In the 19th?
Okay,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, they're the same.
No, they're not.
Different
There-
size.
They shouldn't be.
okay. Before we go, we can continue this discussion,
We
but
need a
we
motion
need
on
to
the-
get it, we have a motion and a second on the amendment.
When I read it word for word in the resolved, they look like the same to
Need
me.
a motion on the amendment?
No.
No, we have
You
that.
call the question on the amendment of moving 4114.
Okay, I would like to call the question on the amendment. All in,
amendment?
all in favor of the amendment?
Can I say the amendment, please?
Yeah.
I was just gonna tell Scott to do exactly what he's doing. He
Okay,
needs to
never
call the vote on the amendment, and if there's discussions on the resolution as amended, you can do that before you formally vote on it as amended.
So all in favor of the amendment?
As, it's just to read it.
Do you want me to read it,
Just to read
just
the
so
amendment.
everyone's clear?
Sure, go
Okay,
ahead.
the amendment, we have a motion by Mr. Benson, second by Mrs. Edwards, to put the duration of the contract in a be it further resolved into the resolution.
And the dates are?
4/1/2014 to 3/31/2015
All in favor
of the amendment.
of the amendment? Okay,
9-zip.
thank you. Now we can continue the discussion. Kitty, have you gotten your issue resolved yet?
I am confused as well.
Do you want me to draft that before the 4:30 meeting?
No, I
With the
got it.
amendment?
No, because I got
No,
it.
no, Andy will handle
I
it.
have it, I'll just put be further.
So it is written, so it shall be.
Okay, what we're voting on is the resolution dated the 18th. What's in the resolution for the 19th is irrelevant at this point. As long as everybody, if Randy and Jim Farrell are comfortable with what's in there,
And we'll have the numbers next
and
month?
we'll have the numbers in personnel.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So we're voting on the 18th.
we're voting today on the 20th for the resolution dated the 18th.
And the total is 3 and an ADA.
Right,
Am I
exactly.
correct?
Two investigators, a new Sullivan County Family Violence Response Team investigator, and 1 ADA.
And what are we doing with this one?
Which one is
Well,
the
that's
one in
irrelevant.
hand? Put
That's
it,
the 19th.
put a
The
big
19th
X through it,
It's
put a
done.
big
It's done.
X.
Shred it.
Big X.
Any further discussion on the
No,
resolution
no.
dated the 18th? Alan?
This resolution, as I understand it, from a budgetary impact includes Jerry's position, but it'll be reclassified. So it's not an additional, well, from just looking at the budget, it's not an additional 76, it's gonna be less than that in terms of
Correct.
fiscal impact.
Correct. I think it's gonna be 45, correct? Randy, is that correct?
Well, I think what Alan's saying is that that amount has an expense in it, Jerry's expense.
It's already-
and
it's already
the reimbursement
budgeted.
is already budgeted.
But you're taking.
So the impacts are 45.
The numbers
Just
we
for
will be,
hands.
will be
yeah.
brought to the Personnel
Personnel
Committee
Yeah, I know.
when all the salaries are set, and those numbers can be discussed in the Personnel Committee in April.
But can I make one additional comment that, just so that we're clear, that unfilled MIS position is now going to be modified to
What
the overage.
What
The one that you
Well,
said that
there's
hadn't been
the
filled.
intergovernmental fund, and within there is that MIS position, but we would use the funding for this.
That's what he said earlier.
MIS
That it's
position
not,
would go away?
it's still
not an
budget
MIS
neutral.
position.
It's not adding to the budget because we're taking from an unfilled position elsewhere.
So it's
Does
covered.
that make sense, Alan?
Yeah.
It's covered.
Yeah.
This is covered
There's no
for
need to
this,
override
for this,
tax
this
cap.
year.
Yeah.
For 14.
Right, for 14, the numbers are covered. All in favor
Of the resolution as
of the
amended.
resolution as amended?
9-zip, done.
Thank you. Jim, thank you. Randy, thank you very much for making all of that very clear to everybody. Jonathan, sure.
As we move, Josh, to these direct bill programs, how is that gonna impact the indirect cost allocation?
Well, for every dollar you shifted, in theory, if it was a dollar for dollar shift, you would shift a dollar of cost from the indirect to the direct bill, and then the theory, and the idea is that you'd get 50 cents on the dollar roughly versus 25 cents by using the direct bill. So you basically have the same
So when
dollar
you're- so
cost,
when
but
you're
double
doing
your
your-
revenue.
When you're doing your budget mod, you're gonna take into account reducing the direct cost, indirect cost, so that we're not double counting as we go through the year.
We just had the auditors in, a couple of days ago or yesterday, that E87 account, has, from what we had budgeted for that, indirect is much lower than what we had budgeted, so Mary thinks that that's, attributed to the direct billing. I don't know if all of the reduction is, but.
Okay? We can move on at this point? Thank you. We can go to resolutions at this point.
I'd like to make a motion, we move 1 through 3 as a block.
1 through 3 on executive? As a block?
Yeah.
I have a comment on the.
I think that,
Okay.
yeah, I think that maybe we should
So
do
the
them.
answer's no.
We can do it.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Nobody
No.
seconded it anyway.
Gene,
I
no.
was gonna.
Number 1, supporting the siting of the first 2 Class 3 gaming casino destination resorts in the Catskill region strictly in Sullivan County.
Motion.
Motion, Gene, second
Second.
Kathy. Any discussion?
I
Cora?
just wanted to make,
Hold on, we're gonna go in
I'm
order.
being
Sorry.
recognized by the chair, I'm looking at page 1A, and I'm looking at the second and fourth whereas, and I know it's not, this appears to be a boilerplate type of resolution, right?
It actually is not. There was actually some work done on it by the IDA attorneys, right?
I
showed them, yes, I had them look it over before we submitted,
Right.
and they had a couple additions, yes.
They're not charging us
They're not charging
Not
us.
We need the money, what do you mean?
Let me be clear, not the IDA attorneys, it's the Wilson Elson.
Okay, the lobbying / law firm.
Law firm.
Okay, so the thing that I understand, the way it's written, it focuses primarily on the tourist economy. But what I'd like to have specific language, and for the sake of brevity, where it says that it now stands as one of the most economically challenged areas in New York, I really want socioeconomic because of all of the indicators where we're at the bottom of the table, whether it's infant mortality or health and employment. And I think we could cover that by just one brief word, socioeconomic, rather than strictly economic, because.
Are you proposing an amendment and?
Socio, yes.
And where,
what
in which?
paragraph
which
for?
Second
Which-
one.
1, 2.
It says, whereas Sullivan County has experienced a significant downturn in
Okay.
its tourist economy over the last half-century, and now stands as one of the most economically challenged areas in New York State. So I want socioeconomic because of, and without
Okay.
getting into too much detail.
So that's,
Okay, so we'll make a motion.
so
to-
motion, we have a motion from Cora to make it, or.
Second.
Take out oh.
No, we're adding
Yeah.
socioeconomically
Economic.
challenged.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
And then the skip one, and then the next one, which is where Sullivan County ranked last in New York State in year 2013 job creation, and was the only area in the Hudson Valley that experienced a year-over-year decrease in private sector employment, and is above, it's one of the highest unemployment statistics in New York State, according to your last report.
So what do you want to?
You really want that in there?
Well, just after that comma, a year-over-year decrease in private sector employment, and has one of the highest rates of unemployment in New York State. That's my suggested amendment. What's that? Sam? And has one of the highest unemployment rates in New York State.
I'm not sure which whereas that you're putting that in. 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, one down, page 1A.
Number 4 here. 1A.
Okay.
Cora, can you please read me the paragraph how you would like it read?
Okay, whereas Sullivan County ranked last in New York State in year 2013 job creation, and was the only area in the Hudson Valley that experienced a year-over-year decrease in private sector employment, comma, and is one of the highest rate, and has one of the highest unemployment rates in New York State. Although that's not according to Johnny Nelson, whoever he may be.
Okay, I'll second her motion, her amendment.
Well, can
Okay,
I
we have a
wanna-
second, so we have,
No.
go ahead.
If I could ask a question, if we're gonna put that in there, and I think it's a good addition, it's just, we're saying that Johnny Nelson, whoever he might be, is the one
He
who
didn't say
said that.
no.
So I don't know if we can
So,
leave then the
private sector
Johnny Nelson
employment-
guy in there.
Private sector employment according
say
to
it.
Johnny Nelson, comma, and, New York State statistics on unemployment, correct?
So we can't
Last-
quote it.
The Department of Labor statistics?
Yeah, the last ranking, we were 52 out of 62 in terms of the
No,
highest.
she didn't.
Okay,
She was
so
just
I'm
saying that.
sorry, Anne Marie,
Mm-hmm.
instead of putting it after private sector employment, according to just keep according to Johnny Nelson, comma, labor market analyst for the state, and Sullivan County ranks as one of the, ranks 56 out of 62.
You might have to rewrite.
Ranks 52nd out of 63?
62.
Ranks 52nd out of 62.
That
dates it for this month.
But
I
I
think
apologize,
Right.
Cora.
That's wrong to do
Cora,
that.
That's just the last,
As of,
One of the highest rates.
Yeah,
leave
just
it
put
as
one of the
one
highest
zero.
rates.
and one of the high, sorry, Annie, at the end of the, after Johnny Nelson, labor market analyst for the state, and has one of the highest unemployment rates in New York State.
Okay.
And that keeps, it makes everybody happy.
I'm not putting the 52nd.
No, because
Okay.
of when it was.
Okay, so we have socio and that comment. Those are the two amendments. All in favor of the amendments? Okay. Anything further on the resolution?
Anybody opposed?
yes.
Any opposed?
I need to, swim against the tide here.
Okay, but hold on. Was there any opposed to the amendment?
Yes, Cindy, and
Well, I wanna, I
Well,
had a
you can
question
have-
on the amendment. I'm just a little uncomfortable citing Johnny Nelson. I don't know who he is. Is that
Who is
right?
it?
Take his name out, I agree.
And the problem with citing a particular person
That's
is
the-
they may disagree with our interpretation
Right, but-
of us being the highest. And then if he's asked, he might say, well, I can name 3 other counties that have higher rates. So
So then
Good
put it
point.
as a separate whereas. and
Thank you.
then-
We have
Please
enough
say
other,
that.
Yeah.
we
I
have
think
enough
right where
people
you went
picking
to.
on us. Why are we picking on ourselves?
Corey,
We want the applications to succeed.
I
where
understand.
you had initially stopped where after the private sector employment comma and have one of the highest unemployment rates in New York State, I would end it right there.
Annie, are you with us?
Not really.
I'm with your amendment. I don't know what Alan's saying. I'm not with that.
He wants to check out the guy's name,
I'll
right,
do it.
Alan?
Okay, but
You go to the whereas, right, that paragraph, and when you get to the third line, in private sector employment, comma, I would just delete out, according to Johnny Nelson, labor market analyst for the state, and in its place, put what Cora suggested.
Okay.
And has
Okay.
one of the
okay,
highest.
but
Okay.
we did vote on the amendment.
Okay.
So do we need to do a second
Yes,
amendment?
I'll
Yes.
Okay, so you
Moved
need
by
to
Alan,
propose an
seconded
amendment.
by Kathy to delete according to
The guy's
Johnny
name.
Nelson,
I'd
labor
like to
market
propose an
analyst for the
amendment to the
state.
amendment.
And I'll second that proposal, whatever, the amendment.
And the
Okay.
only difference would be that
You're just taking out Johnny Nelson, labor
Right,
market
right.
analyst for the
What?
state.
Right.
And going right to Cora's amendment.
yes.
Okay? Got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Club.
All in favor of that amendment? The amendment to the amendment? Okay, great.
Not yet.
Anything further on the resolution? Cindy, go ahead.
I'm just gonna voice my thoughts and my concerns.
Please make it as brief
I
as
will.
possible.
I
I think we all
I
sense
promise.
where you're going,
Okay.
so if you could keep it brief,
My
that'd be
feeling
great.
on this is, I understand the governor's proposal, projected revenue, tax relief. I understand the people's referendum, that's not really my issue. My issue is, the interests of the county itself. And as a legislator, with the responsibility with regard to county spending, incurring debt, adopting a county budget. And when you look at other areas of casino destination resorts, whether it's a single casino or a destination casino, there are impacts to local government, local taxpayers, the general public. It's costs for roads, for bridges, infrastructure, schools, public safety, resources for the vulnerable. And in those areas, various taxes that come in, many times, the cost of impacts exceed what the revenue's coming in. So, in my responsibility as a legislator, and we had a discussion this morning about those impacts, how do we mitigate impacts when ultimately 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, we find out that the projected revenues coming in are not covering our mitigated problems. So I understand there's an impact committee gonna discuss the impacts. Somebody said, oh, you can't make agreements with the casinos.
Is this
you
a
can't
brief
have
statement?
impact fees."
Yeah,
Yes,
it is
okay. So that's my concern,
Okay.
right.
Great. All in favor?
Resolution as amended with
amended.
both amendments. Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Opposed? Cindy.
All
Okay.
right, so
Great.
8-1.
Thank you. Number 2. Adopt okay.
Second.
Motion, second, Kathy. All right. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the list? Are there any additions or? Okay, all in favor?
9-zip.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, appoint Carol Roygan, Howard Siegel to the Sullivan County
Move it.
Industrial Development Agency.
Second.
Okay, Kathy and Jean. Any discussion? Okay,
I
all.
want to say congratulations.
Well,
Because
it's not done yet. Let's do it and then we'll congratulate them. All in favor?
9-zip.
She's over there.
Congratulations, Carol.
Thank you.
All right. Seriously though, thank you for applying. Thank you for stepping up, and we congratulate you and hope you have as much fun there as we're having here today. Okay, number 4, create a bond policy requested by,
I'll move it for
create a bond
discussion.
policy.
So who's writing the policy, you, Cora?
Okay, wait a minute. We have a motion by Cora, second by Alan. Okay.
Cora's writing the policy. I just think Cora's writing the policy.
Okay, discussion?
Making notes.
Kathy has a comment.
I said Cora's gonna write the policy. Present it to us next month. She's a
Is
grant
there any
writer.
discussion on this
No,
resolution?
that's it.
What's that?
Oh.
Okay, Jonathan?
First, we had a committee meeting where we brought up and we discussed the fact that the county has a debt management policy.
We do.
that was passed in April of 2013. That specifically says that it is the policy of the county unless modified or changed. So we already have a debt management policy
we
that
do.
we spent several months articulating,
Nobody's
has
asked.
all of the information as to what projects can and cannot be bonded, all the items that have to be included, and it's fairly comprehensive. It's 10 or 12 pages.
Didn't we vote on a policy
Yes.
last
That's
December?
what he's talking
It
about.
It was April.
April.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it was, so, A, it's duplicative, and B, we already have something that's the official policy of the county. If that's gonna be modified, I think the time to do that is through the process we outlined in the committee meeting. I think the resolution's out of order and it should be tabled at this point. So I make a motion to table this resolution.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion to table.
No, I just
A
want.
motion to
Notice
table,
table.
a motion to table overrides anything
Right,
else. You
so
need
do
to
we
call
have a
the question.
second on the
There's no
tabling of the,
discussion.
of the resolution?
I'll second the motion table.
Okay. All in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4. Jean, what's that?
Yeah,
5.
Okay. Number 5, authorized contract with New York State Department of Health and New York State Mental Hygiene Offices.
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Kitty already did. Thank you, Jean.
That's fine.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
9 zip.
9 zip, thank you. Okay, number 6, amend contract with Sullivan County Partnership for Economic Development. Motion?
I'd like the motion to table this. I believe there are other alternatives to what's being proposed in this resolution that can be explored. I've had some conversations with the IDA in this respect, and I would like the opportunity to explore those options before.
Okay, motion to table, second.
Kitty?
Kitty? All in favor?
1, 2, 3. Are you up? 4. Motion fails.
Tired. I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention, I was still on the bond policy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Resolution's tabled. 5, 4.
Okay, number 7, provide funding to Sullivan County IDA for less than trailer load local food distribution hub. Motion?
I'll move it for discussion.
Okay, second, Jonathan. Discussion?
Wait a second.
You tabled the wrong one.
It's too late.
We were on 7.
Sorry.
No,
No,
we
we were on
weren't.
6.
We were on number 6.
Call the partnership quick.
We were on number 6.
Helen voted against
So
him.
we tabled the number 6 and now we're.
Now we're on number
discussion.
7.
He wrote the resolution. for number 6.
Yeah, you wrote the resolution for 6 that you just tabled.
You can go back to
Can we
I'm
do
gonna have to
it?
go back.
Hold on, hold on, hold on. Sam?
Anyone who voted in favor of tabling can make the motion to reconsider the tabling motion, and then you
I'm sorry.
reconsider
I
that,
got
and
ahead of
untable
myself.
it if you want.
I made the motion to.
I thought we were on
Wait a minute, wait a minute. We're on number 7. We're dealing with number 7 right now. Then we can go back to number 6.
Okay, good
Okay,
point.
so
All right.
number 7,
Got
motion.
yourself into?
I asked for a motion to table.
John, Ira, second.
What are you doing?
What are we doing?
Number 7?
Yeah.
7, I'm asking for a motion to table.
No, we have a motion by Mrs. Labuda, seconded by Mr. Ruiz for discussion on number 7.
Okay.
Okay, I'm seconding the motion for discussion, or are we having the discussion
No,
on
we are,
number 7?
we already got the motion in the second, we're in discussion.
Can I
Number
raise my
7.
hand to make a comment?
You can.
Thank you. So as sitting on the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council for Scott, there was a presentation for the, I call it the trucking program. It's, and my understanding was that there was a $300,000 request. What I'd like to see happen is that the people who made that presentation to the Mid-Hudson Region Economic Development Council for this project to be a priority project come before the legislative board and make that presentation, because it's a very comprehensive view of what the project's about. The second question I have is if it was known in December, you know, that there was gonna be $100,000 less from the state funding. My understanding is that this particular resolution was handed into Anne Marie after the deadline, so I don't know why it's coming in so late. But having said that, if you look at page 7, where all of the state and federal and grant funding is blank, I worked through the resolution itself. And I might be wrong about this, but it appears as though the project cost is $560,000. The $110 that's being asked for from the county would bring it up to $670,000. I'd like to see a comprehensive budget that has what other funding sources have been approached. Because the basic question I have is, if the IDA funds projects, why are we funding the IDA? So those are the 3 questions I have, and I'm requesting that we have a presentation for the full board the same way that they did for the regional council.
Ira, is that possible?
Well, I was looking to try to get this on its way. At the last IDA meeting, there was a resolution passed requesting that I come to the legislature and ask for support. There's other funding that we can go after. The one that is possible now does not come to fruition until the middle of next year, and we wanted to start this project. As far as the funding, we have received to date $220,000 in an bank, $90,000 in an RBOG, $200,000 from the CFA, which is over $100,000 less than what was requested, and $250,000 in IDA and private sector matching funds. We are still short $110,000 to start this project. We wanted to go into contract with the land and start moving along. We do have partners. It was a multi-regional application, one that the state was thrilled with. In fact, the governor's office asked for the presentation. I think it would be wonderful for the ag community, and I can give a brief summation of what the project is. Basically.
Wait, sorry, Ira, the question was, can we have a presentation?
Yes, but I still would like to try to, yes.
Okay.
I would like to do that after the approval list today, or have the vote still, but I would be more than glad to have it presented. I have no problem with that. In fact, we do have
sources of funding? You said there are other
There's one that,
funding.
another USDA that just came available, but that does not come, the date that it would be approved is the middle of next year, which means we delay the project for another year and a half.
So the 110, what is the breakdown of that, or is that the balance of?
That's the balance of what's needed to
complete
the project, to move it forward.
And where's the location? Because as far as I was trying to find out where this was going to be located, there wasn't a decision made.
Well, we're not in contract, but we're looking to place it in Mountaindale, in the industrial park there.
In Mountaindale?
New construction, yes.
This funding would have really no impact on where it would eventually be sited. I don't know if the contract hasn't been signed, then ultimately it can be placed somewhere else. The idea of this resolution is to see that it's funded to move the project along. There is money in new initiatives in the budget that we could take this money from to move it along. As Ira said, there are other granting potentials, but it would move the project out at least a year and a half.
Well, I am uncomfortable with this, John, the contingency fund. You're saying that 110 to come out of the.
It's about 1.75 million between the new initiatives line and your just general contingent line. There's 500 specifically appropriated for what we call new initiatives.
So now we found money. I don't feel comfortable with that 110.
Then don't vote for it.
Well, I think we need a budget sheet to show where that money is going, you know?
I think there are other alternatives that we need to explore, including properties that the county owns. We have shovel-ready at the Emerald Corporate Center.
I agree with you 100%.
We have shovel-ready at the industrial park at the airport. We finally have water. And it may be very well that we can close that $110,000 gap just by citing it in one of the county-owned facilities.
Well, it's enough too. You don't have to spend it. It's it solidifies the budget of the project so that it has the opportunity to move forward.
Without a
It's the
budget.
same as,
Hold
same as
on.
the radio project, they're still gonna look for grants. If they come in, it reduces our share, so.
Hold on, I'm sorry, it's gonna fund 100 farmers and create 16 jobs. Don't we wanna support the farmers?
What I'm requesting is a breakdown of the budget, which
will.
you said you can get, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, you have to wait a
And
year and a
then-
half, Alan.
It was all presented, and I believe Cora saw it already.
I think we can get it in this.
That's why I think it's a good thing for the rest of the legislators to know where that 110 is going. It's a slippery slope if we start going down that road, that we don't have an itemized budget sheet for money that we're giving out when we're dealing with state and federal grants. I don't know if Art would back me up on that in a situation like this, but I don't think it's good policy, I don't think it's good practice. And I think that asking for 110 budget sheet with an itemized breakdown and a presentation to the full board is the least that we can do when we're giving money out like this. 110.
And as far as shovel-ready sites, is it, you haven't determined the Mountaindale site? Is that ready?
We're not in contract.
Is that ready?
That's what was presented in the CFA process, but it's not in contract.
It is shovel-ready.
How critical is it that we do it today? Can we put this off until next full board?
That's why I
Or
was
is it,
asking
or
if
is
they
that
do in December.
blowing it away?
It slows it down another month.
No, we can have
Well,
an
a month is better than
emergency or-
18 months.
Hang on, we have had
just
special
asking.
meetings and emergency meetings without having to wait a month.
I'm
But
just
if you don't wanna
asking.
sit through a 15, 20, 30-minute presentation for $110,000, then.
Cora, was there anything in the presentation that you have concerns about? Since you went through the whole process, I think
Yeah.
was that?
If you want me to say them, I will.
Okay, I think we should.
I just think, you know, county cash dollars are limited. We have budget constraints. And if there's a way for us to do this without having a cash outlay, utilizing our existing properties that we own, whether it be the airport business park or the Elmore Corporate Center, I think that is something that we need to explore. My understanding, the property purchase is somewhere, it's around $125,000. So that's less than what the county contribution would need to be. So if we can cut that in half. Or
So could we do this resolution with putting in an up to 110, and if we don't use it, we don't use it?
I think with all the disharmony in this, it ought to either be tabled or put off till next month when there is a presentation, because at this point in time, not knowing where it might go, how much it might cost, it's gonna be up to, but these other two factors haven't been included. And I do see the real value of having this, because allowing the farmer or the one who has the meat or growing or the coffee to get their stuff out there in the area is valuable. But the piece as to the price of it and where it's going are two key factors that I think we all need to have that information before we vote in favor of up to that money.
I only saw this yesterday.
So Ira, can it wait a month or not? I mean,
Excuse me?
can it wait another month?
Motion's on the floor, let's call and we'll see how everybody votes.
All in
It
favor?
doesn't have to wait a month.
1,
For the
2,
farmers,
3,
I gotta vote for
4,
it.
5.
For the farmers, yeah. We gotta move the stuff up.
Okay, it goes to the
So can
board.
we at least still have a public?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
5.
And we should discuss all of the issues that we discussed here today. Okay. Number 8, authorize contract with consultant to develop a comprehensive coordinated transportation services
Oh,
plan.
Hold on.
Yes.
I thought we were going back to number
Oh, I'm
6
sorry.
after we
You're right.
discussed
Okay.
number 7.
Mistake
Thank you.
made. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you cannot move to retable until all of their business is concluded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's point of order.
Okay. So, Kitty, hold that thought until the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 8, authorize the contract to develop a comprehensive coordinated transportation services plan.
Move it.
Kathy, second. Jonathan. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed?
9 zip.
Thank you. Number 9, submitted pre-application to Pew Charitable Trust, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation.
Motion.
Jean.
Second. Kathy. Discussion. All in favor?
Wait, I do have a comment.
Okay.
I just want to thank the team that put this together for actually putting in the concept review form. This, what is it? grant concept approval form. I know last year when this particular grant was discussed, we didn't go through that process. And I know that you spent a lot of time, Art, in trying to get all of these years going.
On the HIA that we had received last year, the county wasn't acting as a lead. So
Right,
there
and
would
we
be no need
decided
to fill out a
ultimately to
grant
drop out,
concept.
but I'm just recognizing the fact that all of your hard work is finally
No,
bearing
thank you, and it was also a lot on planning, and Ethan Cohen and Joe were very instrumental in furthering the effort, so.
Okay, all in
Kudos
favor?
to planning.
Opposed?
Mine's
Okay,
it.
thank you. Number 10, proclaim April 7th through April 13th, 2014 as National Public Health Week in Sullivan County.
Move it.
Motion Kathy, second Jean. All in, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Number 11, authorize contract with Sullivan County BOCES to provide youth services.
Move it.
Kathy, second Jonathan. Any discussion?
Question,
Cora.
Where are they from? The youth, the yeah, their opportunities, where do they go?
This is they're gonna be going in through GED, and they're gonna be going into various occupational training programs, and then they'll be coming back to us, and we will place them in employment. These are out of school, it's an ability check.
Yeah, I get all that, but what are the places that they go to? What are the?
They're gonna be going to BOCES for their training.
Yeah, I get that.
Right.
Their places of employment, where are their places of employment?
That'll come through as their training goes on.
So you'll come back and let us know where they ended up?
Yeah,
Okay,
no problem.
thanks.
Okay, did we vote on that?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
Mine's it.
Number 12, amend resolution 6714 to modify date to February 1st for assistant district attorneys. Motion, Jonathan,
Move that.
second Kathy.
Discussion.
Discussion.
It's
Well, go back.
stated in the original resolution, January 31st. Bonnie Mitzner, January 1st. Bonnie Mitzner didn't leave till January 31st, so you can't put January 1st, you gotta change
Oh,
it to
okay.
February 1st.
Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. 13,
Mine's it.
accept state assistance grant award from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services.
Move it.
Second, Kitty. Discussion.
There's no match or anything, right? It's a grant?
No, I don't believe so. That's it's from Senator John Bonasek. Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
With a reservation, I just
You
want
have
to
a
know
res-
what it's gonna be spent on.
It's actually in there, Gene.
I just,
No, it says it in there. I went through it.
assist with law enforcement.
No, next
That's all I
one,
see.
next one down. It's a vehicle.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah. no, I
Okay.
got it. I missed that, sorry.
Okay, no, I did the same thing. I
Well,
went through it
usually
3
yell
times
at-
till I saw
I
it.
usually yell at everybody about that, I'm sorry.
Okay, nope.
My fault.
No problem. And 14, authorized to apply, accept, and administer an RBEG application.
Move it.
Motion, Kathy, second, Kitty. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Mine's it.
Going back to number 6.
Go back to number 6.
6, got a little ahead of myself.
As long as all business is done, a motion to untable.
Does that include
has-
public comment?
Has to be, that can be at the conclusion, this is still course of
Okay.
business. The motion has to be made by the one of the majority legislators. Seeing that Alan made the motion, he can also now, and it was on the successful side of the vote, he can also move to untable.
I will, got ahead of myself, I will motion to untable.
Okay, we have a second from Kitty. How did I know? Any further discussion? All in favor?
No, this is for the partnership.
Okay,
to
nine
get-
zip, it's
No.
untabled. Now you can make a motion
Okay,
to
so now we'd like a motion to
Discuss.
discuss to amend the contract with the Sullivan County Partnership.
So where's the
motion
Moved
from
by Alan,
Jonathan,
second by
or Alan,
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Okay, I can speak. As part of the Casino Impact Committee meeting that we had, it came out that the first order of business we wanted to achieve was to have a report commissioned outlining why and what attributes Sullivan County has to receive 2 of the licenses. We thought the most efficient way to get that done was to have planning with Alan's assistance, work on having that contract run through the partnership as it's more expedient. We would just amend our contract with the partnership.
So this is
Could you
over the
just
90,000
restate
we
that?
give them?
This was
75?
in the
75.
impacts
But
committee
it's
or
for-
the
it's
planning?
really not
Right,
for
okay, okay.
operations.
Yeah,
For
fine.
the Casino Impacts Committee meeting.
Okay, so in the impacts committee meeting, it was, what was the request? To have a
To have
study?
have a report commissioned, which is gonna outline the the strengths and attributes of Sullivan County in light that we're looking for 2 of the licenses being issued.
But for an impact committee, would you not wanna have a study to study the actual impacts?
Step 1 is to get them. Step 2 is to evaluate what potential impacts and
So you're
mitigation
gonna do
efforts.
that in the fall?
I'll see you later about what we went through at the meeting, but it was divided into 2 parts. One, the initial push to help work through the licensing process. The second, to form some working groups to deal with several areas that we felt needed further review. And
I'm just wondering, I'm not on that committee, but do you have like an agenda or like a goal sheet that
Yep,
you're?
we had laid out the exact
So you have
directions
something,
we
a
want to
summary
go.
that we could?
There's minutes. It was an open meeting, so we can get you those.
Okay, I'm just wondering, an impact committee, I mean, in my way of thinking, I thought it was gonna really drill down and examine what the impacts were gonna be.
All in favor?
Wait, I have a comment.
Go
Am I
ahead.
allowed to make a comment? My understanding of the way that the RFAs are being written is that this is coming out as a property tax relief program for casinos. So I find it a bit ironic that we're asking the taxpayers to pay for what the impacts are gonna be for a report. And I'd like.
It is not anything to do with impact. It's about outlining the strengths and characters under which Sullivan County has in order to receive 2 licenses. It's going to be an independent report issued to the county via the committee, which may ultimately be used by the projects to strengthen their applications. But it's about the attributes and strengths that we all know exist, but want to put on paper and quantified by an independent third party.
So it's not impacts, it's not an impact study. And is it a consultant that they're gonna hire for $25,000?
Yes.
Do you know who that is?
Capacity consultant.
Is that in the resolution?
It's not, because we're just amending our contract with the partnership. They're going to actually engage the services.
So is 25,000 the full amount,
Yes.
or is?
But didn't we hire a lobbyist? I mean, I know we had $100,000.
2 separate issues.
So at what point do impacts actually start to get quantified?
Kind of as you were there, the idea is that we are going to have 3 or 4 sub-working groups that are going to look at everything from roads, bridges, DSS, education, other things, evaluate that up. If those groups come back and say they need additional resources, we'll have to address that when they come. But that's the first step, is to get those on the ground to put their stuff together.
And
we don't have like a due date when this is on.
We talked about having those groups report back at the next monthly meeting as to their progress.
So do you have like a time frame that you're gonna be addressing?
Okay, we really need to move on into full board here.
I know, but I just wanna be clear.
Come to the next meeting, because they're open, they're very transparent, we can see that, but I will see you after, because you weren't able to make the class.
All in favor?
Nine
Opposed?
No,
No, it's 8-1. Thank you, everybody. Public comment?
Very brief.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
Well, you messed up my whole day on Thursdays when you moved your meeting to 4:30 because it interferes with the college.
Oh, so you don't want us to do that anymore? We have a motion on the floor.
We'll be brief.
Ken, we did that on purpose.
Okay,
We knew you were
but
gonna be somewhere else.
the bigger thing I'll say in the other room, this is a small thing. Monday pointed out a big problem we have in Sullivan County. And I call it the hotel syndrome. This is something left over from the hotel era. When really people around in Sullivan County like to hire people as cheap as possible and work them as hard as hell, instead of putting a value on that position and hire people accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Nancy?
Yes, I just want to mention that next week, the Robert Wood Johnson County Health Rankings are coming out again. It's an annual event since 2010. So I want to let you know about that. And I just want you to be aware of all of the issues that are coming to the table to involve public health, wherever there may be some impacts on the residents of the county, because we could definitely provide some input to improve the health of the county.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You'll
Nancy.
be working with Randy on that committee, right?
Okay.
On the task force?
Moved by Mrs. Labuda,
No.
seconded by.
Me.
Oh no, this stopped.
So what, we're not gonna rehash everything we just said?
We gotta
You gotta tape
Okay,
record it.
motion to, is there any further
Wait, hold
public
on.
comment?
Any more?
Motion to adjourn?
Someone hit
So
the
moved.
off button.